Mic check, 1, 2. Mic check. Mic check. 1, 2.
JJ. Go to YouTube, the Bayview report. No, the Bayview
Check,
report.
mic check, 1. Mic check. Mic check, 1.
She can get the signal. Yeah, the Bayview report. THE, yep. You see it? Would you see an image? Yeah. Okay, good enough. I got it.
Mic check, 1, 2.
Hello.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Mayor's Hunters Point Shipyard Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. We're meeting on Monday, October 7, 2019.
Hello.
And we're starting the meeting at about approximately 6:06 p.m. So, I'm Dr. Veronica Honeycutt, the chair of this wonderful group of people who are dedicated to making sure that the community's interests are represented in the work that we do. So, Mrs. Hakeem, would you kindly call the roll?
Pastor Josiah Bell, here. Servio Gomez.
Here.
Dr. Veronica Honeycutt.
Here.
Richard Lothman is excused. Scott Madison.
Here.
Ali Mixon is excused. Dedria Smith is absent. Doris Vincent, expected. Doris Vincent's here. Neola Gaines.
Here.
Joyce Armstrong.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hakeem. Members, would you kindly look at the agenda, and when you are finished looking at it, I will entertain a motion and a second to approve this aspect.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mrs. Benson.
that we approve the agenda as printed.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Joint second. Mrs. Gans and Mr. Madison. All right, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Now, would you take a look at the minutes of August the 12th? Ready, I'll entertain a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Second. Thank you very much. Discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I didn't hear many ayes, but I didn't get much opposition. Okay, thank you very much. So that is approved, and we move on. Thank you, Mrs. Vincent. Announcements, Mrs. Hakeem.
The remaining meetings for October is as follows. On tomorrow, the 8th, we will hear, October 15th, not the 8th. The OCII Commission will meet at City Hall, room 416 at 1 o'clock. Granted that the action item before you tonight is approved, they will be hearing the same thing. On October 28th, you will have the executive meeting at 6 o'clock, and those are all the remaining meetings for the CAC for the month of October. Please note that the site office will be closed in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day on October 14th.
That's it? All right. Members, do you have any announcements? Any announcements? All right, good. We'll move on to continuing business. All right.
Correction, apparently I misspoke. The room is 416, not 417.
I'm sorry, wait just a minute until they
I
finish.
said I thought I said 416. Apparently I said 417, so I want to be clear that the room for the OCII Commission meeting is 416.
I'm sorry, now you've confused me. All right, so the OCII meeting is October 15th.
Yes,
At what time?
at 1 o'clock.
That's
City
right.
Hall,
In
room 416. Yes.
Yes, we know it by heart, so I just want to make sure that the listening audience understands that too. Thank you so much, Mrs. Hakeem. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay, very good. All right, so we move on to continuing business, the chair's report, and I'm going to tell you this, folks, in the interest of time, because we have a full agenda, I am going to suspend both my report on the Legacy Foundation and the IC, because both of those groups are in the process of working on various projects. Okay, so when I meet with them again in November, and when our meeting occurs, I'll probably have an update for you. So I'm moving right into the CAC Subcommittee Chair Reports, Business and Employment. Mrs. Vincent.
Doris Vincent, I have no report, but I want to let you know I have to leave at 6:45. So please excuse me.
All right, Mrs. Vincent, thank you for that. Executive Subcommittee meeting. I chair that meeting, and much of what you see in front of you is what we discussed. Environment and reuse, I chair that meeting as well. There was no meeting that occurred this month. Housing, Pastor Josiah Bell and Dedria Smith. Pastor Bell is with us.
We had no meeting.
All right, thank you very much. Planning, Development, and Finance, Mr. Loftman is not with us tonight because he is recuperating. And so therefore, we have finished our subcommittee chair reports. So we're moving on now to the developers report, HPS Phase 1 project update. Mike, oh, and the last name. I don't want to butcher your last name, but you're not, that's, you're taking his place, because I know you. And I know him and his dad, his daddy and everything. Yes. Good to see you. Leroy King.
All right. And I'm going to give you a quick construction update on the hillside. Starting at the hillside, Block 55, we are in the last stages of that project, hoping by November we finish the final building, going for TCO. Right now, 4 and 5 are the last buildings that are left to complete, and they're again in the TCO process. So that's going well. Again, we're hoping to close everything out construction-wise at the end of November. The sales are going well. We actually have units sold in every single building right now. Wonderful. So yeah, it's moving forward. It's going great.
Fantastic.
Hilltop is we're going for a site permit next month, and we're hoping to break ground on the underground for the 17 buildings in the end of November. The overall process is probably a 3-year project by the time all 17 buildings get built. The Block 52, which is also on the hilltop, we are going for permits. We're hoping to get permits by the end of this year and start construction by middle of next summer for the 17 units on 52 block. I think that's it. Is there any questions on that?
Any questions, members? Any questions?
How come you never come and visit us anymore, Mr. King?
I'm coming next week.
We saw a lot of Mr. King when the kitchen was being put together.
You just miss him, that's
He's
all.
one of the smartest guys I've ever met and one of the nicest people.
Yes, indeed, you're right about that. Yes. No, yes, you are. Okay. All right, thank you so much for that report, Mr. King. All right, so we're going to move on to our presentations, of which we have 3. The first one, presentation on the new plans for Candlestick Center, the former Candlestick Park Stadium site, and corresponding modifications to supporting documents, including the major phase plan, the D for D, and the infrastructure and transportation plans by Therese of 5 Point. Oh, that's right. No, we're starting with LaShawn Walker of 5 Point.
Good evening, CAC members and guests, community. My name is LaShawn Walker, and I'm Community Affairs Director for 5 Point. As you've indicated, Chair Honeycutt, we are here tonight to talk with you about the updates to the Candlestick Development Plan. Before my team speaks to you this evening and before my colleague Therese Brecky gets to the podium here, I wanted to address a few things. At 10:30 p.m. last evening, we received some questions from OCII forwarded to us by Pastor Bell. And so we wanted to respond to those questions that are ours to respond to and deal with that directly before we get to the presentation. So I have the questions here in front of me. How many lawsuits are currently filed against Lennar? We, as a 5 Point representative, we are not speculating about lawsuits against Lennar. We have forwarded the questions related to Lennar to the Lennar team. Is Lennar going to file for bankruptcy if any of these people prevail in their lawsuits? I have no response there as a 5 Point employee.
Is 5 Point going to assume liability for Lennar for Phase 1 DDA promises to the CAC? We are not assuming any responsibility for Lennar's obligations. What is the Navy position on the lawsuits questioning the EPA's handling of hazardous material in the shipyard? That's a question for the Navy. Explain the relationship between Alice Griffith and the buildings that are built in the old properties where housing is located. Does that belong to 5 Point, the old properties? Phases 1 through 4 of the Alice Griffith development were completed May 23rd. As of that date, the 33 vacant buildings were transferred from San Francisco Housing Authority to to 5 Point. So 5 Point now owns those 33 vacant buildings. We are in the process of abating them, and when the abatement work is completed, the buildings will be demolished. As part of our presentation tonight, you will hear more about Alice Griffith. How, and I'm reading these verbatim, so how is it been senior house and was implemented in lieu of giving us more income housing? Low income house is how it reads. So I believe the question is related to the standalone senior product that is in Candlestick and the relationship between that and the rest of the affordable housing that will be in Candlestick. Again, that will be addressed in tonight's presentation. There needs to be some public parking lots in this area. There will be parking structures in the project. Again, that will be addressed in the presentation. The CAC needs to have a budget of no less than $250,000. That's not something I can address. We're here as 5 Point representatives to talk about Candlestick. On this past Friday, we received a set of questions also. So we received a set on Friday and we received a set, as I said, last evening. This now are the questions from Friday. How is it that all other cities are getting 20 to 30% BMRs and we're only getting 5? Why is the trade-off for affordable housing give because they're building senior housing? As I read that, I understand it to be a question about the total amount of affordable below market rate product in the project, and again, that standalone senior product. In the presentation, we will directly respond to questions related to the amount of affordable housing in the project and that standalone senior product. Why isn't the Mayor's Office of Housing pushing 5 Point for more low-income housing? Can't address what the Mayor's Office of Housing does or does not do, but I think all questions related to our below market rate product will be responded to in the presentation. Why wasn't the CAC involved in the planning and development of this project before drawing and allocation of housing was determined? The CAC has been involved in the project from the beginning. As you all know, whether it's coming to the Planning, Development, and Finance Subcommittee or any subcommittee of the board, as well as coming here to the full CAC, we do that before we go to the OCII Commission. Where is the property that was promised to the Legacy Foundation? In the presentation tonight, you will receive some information, you have it in front of you, that gives specifics on all of the community's facilities parcels. Why doesn't OCII bring in consultants to help CAC members understand some of the technical aspects of the project? OCII representatives are here tonight. I cannot opine about what they do or do not do, but we as 5 Point team have made ourselves available to workshop with CAC members just as we do with the OCII commissioners. The International African Marketplace needs to have a defined place. It does, and you will see that in the presentation this evening. The auction lots were hid from us, and you only know about them if you read the material, which is why we send it. We send the material so that it can be read. Those are the questions that we received both on Friday and last night, Sunday. I will turn it over now to my team. If there are any other questions during the question and answer period, we'll be glad to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before you start, Ms. Walker, Pastor Bell would like to say something to you, I believe.
Were the questions, are you going to respond in detail to any of the questions, or are you waiting for the team to respond?
So, as I said, as I responded here at the microphone just a moment ago, many of the questions, the details, the answers are in the presentation itself. The things that are not in the presentation itself, I've responded just now here at the microphone. If something is not satisfactory, you'll have to let me know that.
Well, I don't think you really responded. You just read the
So I read the
concerns.
questions, I read the question and then gave it a response after each question. Many of the things in the statements or questions, as I said, the presentation will answer a lot of it. The things that are not ours to respond to, I stated that. Those questions for Lennar have been forwarded to them. Questions about affordable housing, I'd like us to let the team make the presentation. Much of that is in there. Questions about the auction lots, questions about where the International African Marketplace, that information is in the presentation. The full CAC, all of the CAC, all of you received the presentation before tonight, so you've had a chance to see it. But for the, I'm saying for the good of the listening audience and the public, the presentation will address a lot of what I've just read here at the microphone.
Okay, you kind of vaguely alluded to the fact that we receive these packets which are informative or information for us. But all of this information was conceived, drawn up without any of our participation whatsoever. We get the end result. The end result of you, OCII, and the Mayor's Office of Housing is this material that we get. And then we're only given a short time to go through it. My concern is if there was someone from the CAC or the community who was involved in the conception, planning of these documents, we might receive a different set of documents. An example, if some of us were there, we might have said, well, wait a minute. The community has, we've already built one to senior housing. We don't really want more senior housing. We think that affordable housing and low-income housing is more important to our people who are being priced out of this city. But it seems like the Mayor's Office of Housing, OCII, and Lennar, Lennar in the past, made the decision, gave us your decision, and said, approve it. And I don't think that's fair.
So, we're here tonight for a series of updates to a plan that was first for Candlestick, Phase 2, the major Phase 2 of this project. When I say this project, I mean both Hunters Point Shipyard and Candlestick. Candlestick is part of the major Phase 2. That project was entitled initially in 2008. There were a series of community meetings, hundreds, I think at last count it was 250, meetings that took place in the community about the initial concept before it was ever entitled. Throughout that time, between 2008 and today, there have been and Therese will give the specifics, but there have been a number of moments, tonight is one, or at this season that we're in is one, a series of moments where we've come to the CAC for updates to the plan. We have, as part of that, engaged the community at every moment where there has been updates to the plan, and this time is no different. So that series of community meetings that took place, as I said, at last count it was 250, that took place before the project was entitled, they stand. But there have always been community engagement and engagement with the CAC as we've come for updates, and now is no different.
I know you are saying community involvement. However, the community involvement has always been, you are presenting to us what, and it says it in the document, what the Mayor's Office of Housing, OCII, and before that, redevelopment, what you thought we need, and you come to these meetings and you make it seem like that's what we wanted. And I'm saying, after reading and going through this material, there's some things that we don't want. And that we don't think they would have came to us in a final state, because this is a final state. We're sitting here being asked to approve this, then it goes to the commission for the final. And that's it. And I'm saying, I don't think it's fair. I think that some of the things that are happening, we have not been involved in. We were involved in it secondhand, but not initially. You even spelled it out here, who did the decision making. You said that OCII, Mayor's Office of Housing, and Lennar made the decision on this plan, and now you want us to approve it. That's basically what you're saying. And I'm saying that it shouldn't be like that. And everybody's in such a rush to get this project going, get it going, get it going. Well, there's such a dire need for housing in San Francisco, and I think we need to throttle this down and talk about a little more in terms of how we can get more affordable and low-income housing. I want to, if Lennar or whoever got the old Alice Griffin plots given to them, what are they going to do with it?
Okay, Pastor Bill, may I say this to you? We understand what your concerns are. All of those questions that you shared with me, I shared with the principals involved so that you could get these responses today. I would suggest that we move ahead with the presentation because I think some of the questions that you're asking may well be answered. I think we all hear loud and clear that you feel that the CAC was not as involved in some of the decision-making that you would have liked us to be. I get that, okay? We all get that. But now we're in a position where we can get some feedback from them on these various aspects that you're questioning. Okay? So would you, let's have the presentation. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Walker, for clarifying all of the, having answers for his questions. I think that's very important. That he had that opportunity to ask those questions, okay? So let's hear the presentation, okay? Yes, I'm sorry, Mrs. Vincent.
I just wanted to piggyback off of, we talk about OCII and all of the other entities making the decision. They brought the plans before us. We approved it to go to OCII. So we can't just say they made the decision. We were part of that decision making.
They tell us in this document that we weren't there. In this very document that they have before us, They told us who made the decision. They didn't say anything about CAC members, none of that. So I don't want to hear that.
Okay, so Pastor Bill, Pastor Bill, Pastor Bill, we have participated in other kinds of activities about this. They've presented it to us every step of the way, and in fact, they had a separate workshop for us, okay, where you had a chance to ask some questions, okay? So let's hear the presentation, okay?
So I will now turn the podium over, as I said, to my colleague, Therese Brecky. But before I take my seat, I will just conclude by saying that we have tried to be very transparent and direct to bring the questions here tonight and respond to them as best we can and within our purview. And as I said, the questions that are for other entities, whether that be Lennar or OCII or the Mayor's Office, they have already been forwarded to those entities for response.
All right, so let's get with and keep with the agenda, okay? So let's move on with this presentation. Thank you so much.
Chairman Honeycutt and Citizens Advisory Committee meeting members, our community here tonight. My name is Therese Brecky. I'm the Senior Director of Planning for 5 Point, and I appreciate your taking the time to talk with us today about some ideas for Candlestick Point. I'm here to present amendments to the major phase application, as well as corresponding amendments to transportation plan, infrastructure plan, design for development, and also to update you on our schedule of performance. The first slide I want to review with you is, it's not here? Okay, so, okay, so here's the next slide, please. So tonight, we're going to provide some background, we're going to provide information on the proposed changes, and then we'll be talking about the next steps. So moving in the background, thank you for cueing me here. I just wanted to provide a slide showing some orientation for those who are perhaps watching at home or those in the community who may not be as familiar with the site. What you see before you is Candlestick Point. The larger, rather triangular shape is the takedown of the stadium, and then around that you see dirt that's piled, surcharging our future housing development along Ingerson and Harney. And in the very background of that slide you can see some of the Alice Griffiths building in process. Now let's talk about what we're here about. And what we're really here about are three things. We're here to create jobs, we're here to provide housing, and we're here to ensure that all the community benefits promised in 2010 are yours and effectuated as a part of this plan. Jobs. We have a new plan for Candlestick Point, and what that plan means is there is a broader range of the types of jobs that will be available on Candlestick Point. There'll be more opportunities for a broader range of those with various education levels, various talents to apply, and we will be following all of our obligations for workforce hiring with priority to the Bayview Hunters Point residents. Our next job is to provide more housing, and I want to get into some of the details that Pastor Bell and others have raised here. So our job is to respond to the housing crisis. I want you to know that every step of the way over the past few years, we have been increasing the amount of housing. Yet the CAC and the OCII Commission have reviewed a number of housing projects along Ingerson and Harney Way. You have approved those projects, and those projects provide more housing than was contemplated in 2010. So we recognize that to advance housing is critical to this city. We have 2,949 housing units as a part of the first major phase. And of those, 39% are below market rate housing units. And included within those, and I'll emphasize now, and I'll talk with you about it a little later, Pastor Bell, that the senior housing that has been proposed is proposed at the deepest affordability ranges. So the senior housing is applied to those with 0 to 60% incomes. So when you talk about advancing deep levels of affordability, we took that step last year and are implementing it today with your recommendation for approval to the OCII Commission. So of those housing units, they will all be at the deep affordability level. I also think it's important to point out that of all the affordable housing units throughout the project, and we have 32%. I don't know that that's matched anywhere else in the city, but of all of them, over half are at the 60% and lower area median income. So the substantial amount of the housing we've proposed is at that level. Last year, if I may move on to the next topic, last year you guys recommended approvals to the OCII Commission, and who in turn recommended to the Board of Supervisors that they do two things. They provide flexibility and allow us to convert various uses throughout the project, principally commercial uses, commercial, retail, to office use and back and forth. They provided that flexibility with full acknowledgement that the market is evolving over time. We have seen that evolution since 2010. We all thought at that time a regional retail anchor was important to the project. What we have learned in the past 10 years is with new technology, a great deal of e-commerce, a lot of people spending things on, dining out and gyms and things like that. The idea of doing a focused regional retail center was no longer making sense. What was beginning to make sense is office. And so the second thing that you did when you recommended to the OCII Commission the ability to transfer office across the site from Hunters Point Shipyard, where we have many millions of square feet of office, you allowed that to be transferred to Candlestick Point. Now, what that has done, all of these steps that you've taken to date, I think are creating for a successful Candlestick Center, where the housing increases, including the senior housing, the office increases. We are now going to be proposing 750,000 square feet of office, and we are now right-sizing the amount of retail. Retail does not go away. We still retain about 170,000 square feet of regional retail at the CP Center site, and we have about 135,000 square feet of neighborhood serving retail that will principally be along Ingerson and Harney Way. So those matters, increasing housing and providing the jobs and right-sizing of retail, all of this is garnered to creating a successful project. The next thing that's important, and we've talked about for this community, is childcare. One of the advantages that childcare, or that the office brings, is that office and hotel uses are required to either provide childcare on site or provide a fee in lieu thereof for childcare to be built in another proximate location. So with office and housing, office and a hotel that we are proposing now, will come childcare resources that are really important. The other thing that we've done, and I'll show you more as we move through the next few slides, is we have retained the site of the Frandelja Child Development Center playground. The Child Development Center is currently located in True Hope Church. They have a playground in an area that had been slated for future development. We agreed together with the folks from Fandelja and also from the Housing Authority and OCII to pull a market rate unit off the table and allow Frandelja to remain in its current place, and the homes that had been on that market rate block, we've dispersed to other blocks throughout Alice Griffith. So we as the developer have given up a block, but it's for a good reason. It is for the purpose of ensuring that that playground remains intact. Now background. I've got a few black background slides. As you all know, the Candlestick Point, as well as Hunters Point Shipyard, each is going to be developed in a course of 3 major phases, and then within each of those major phases, there are several subphases. So within the first major phase and the first subphase, we have the Alice Griffith development, which LaShawn referred to earlier. We're all very happy that we have 337 families now living in new homes in the Alice Griffith neighborhood. The Candlestick Center, that's part of this major phase application, and it will follow with a subphase application. And as I mentioned earlier too, we also have some designs already approved for additional housing and retail ground floor along Harney and Ingerson. Now, while we're doing this, while we're building more housing sooner and creating jobs, as I also noted, we are maintaining our obligation to provide all the community benefits that we agreed to back in 2010. So things such as the scholarship funds and the education monies and the wellness center monies, all of that remains as an obligation to this project. And one of the things I want you all to know is that to date, Five Point has expended $57 million in community benefits. That is applied to the Alice Griffith development. In other words, for every unit, we provide $90,000. For every OCII unit, we provide $70,000. So we are meeting those obligations. We're also meeting the obligations for the education funds, the wellness, the credit support, all of those things. The next slide is depicting what are called the community facilities lots. Now, there have been some talk about these lots once before. We have several lots on Hunters Point Shipyard The number of lots on Hunters Point Shipyard total about 4.8 acres. You'll see them circle those purple squares on the Hunters Point Shipyard side with the circle around them. Those are the location of the community lots. On the Candlestick side, you see where we are proposed a move of a lot at the corner of Ingerson and Aurelius Walker Drive to Alice Griffith, where we think is probably a better location to provide community services than in the midst of some pretty intense, office and retail uses. We go to the next one. We probably can't say this quite enough, but we will be serving all income levels, 0 to 60, the inclusionary, as well as workforce housing. Please. So this slide, and it is in your package, so I realize up on the screen it may be a little difficult to read, but it really, just to highlight a couple of the numbers before, within the first major phase, 34% of the homes within the first major phase, that is over 1,000 units, are going to be at 60% and lower area median income housing. We are also providing inclusionary units as a part of the first major phase, with a total number of affordable units in this phase at 1,138. That is 39% of all housing development. Can we? The other community benefits programs, of course, we have still retained the obligations and the desire to put in those good faith efforts to hire both construction workers as well as permanent hires, and as well as doing contracting, design and such to get us to where we're ready to build. So the proposed changes, let's go through those a little bit again. We have at Candlestick Center, more housing, more office, and right-sized retail. We have updates to a design for development document, which really sets the stage for this new development at Candlestick Center. We also have some updates to the project phasing. While we were recognizing the need to dissolve the relationship with our regional retail partner, we began to revamp, do market studies, do all kinds of fiscal analysis, and to talk to people about what will be successful in the future. What can we use now to anchor this project? And the resounding answer was to put office in this location. The other proposed changes specific to Alice Griffith neighborhood, again, it was a move of a community site from one corner of the project at our Ingerson and Aurelius Walker Drive to up at Hawes and Egbert in the Alice Griffith neighborhood. So here is the land use map comparison, the before and now. On the before, in the land use plan that you see on your left, in the center you see a great deal of red, and that red is to symbolize regional retail, with housing and retail at the ground floor along the edges. What we are doing today is, again, we're retaining some retail, but we are also primarily focusing future development on office. That's depicted in the blue on the screen. The things that remain include some of the housing, some of the Film Arts Center, the hotel, and I say, we're retaining housing, but in truth, we're also adding to housing in this neighborhood. Yeah? And here's a subphase. If you were to look at the subphases, we go to the next. You will like numbers, and here's a comparison. So total number of housing units, last approved, 2,521. We've added 428 to this new program. Now we're at 2,949. The office, as you see, under the old program, it was fairly limited, 134,500, and we're adding to it to get to 750,000. Regional retail, again, you see that it's been lessened, but at the same time, we have a good amount of retail that is still a part of the overall program. Community facility spaces, I'll talk about those in just a moment. As you all know, the amount of community facility spaces associated with the project is tied to the total amount of retail on site. So when we had a large regional retail mall, 635,000 square feet, as you could imagine, there was greater opportunities to provide these community facility spaces. Now that that amount of retail has been reduced, we still have community facility spaces. These are the spaces that are available to local residents and businesses in the Bayview Hunters Point community. And so that remains. Shall we go on? Just to get into even a little more detail, we're talking in terms of infield and outfield sometimes is helpful to folks. So let's do that. The outfield program, in the blue, what you see is 750,000 square feet of office uses. The yellows and the oranges represent residential development. And then that red, again, is an indicator of retail. And the infield, again, more multifamily housing. This is where the location for the senior housing is planned. We also have the hotel, the Film Arts Center, and again here, some retail at the ground floor. So design for development updates. There were several things that came about as a result of, a need for a new office building. And one of those things was we needed to update the design standards and the design guidelines for this new type of development. So what we have done is, we dealt with some of the larger floor plates and taller floor-to-ceiling heights by prescribing a balance of urban character, built form, that is created by a lot of techniques. Among those techniques include things such as facade articulation. In other words, we all see buildings, sometimes they'll pop out with certain kinds of perhaps shading features, and that both serves the purpose of shading, and at the same time it creates a certain depth so that the mass of the building is broken down. Those kinds of things, appropriately scaled, as well as some activation at the ground floor, are really going to make these pedestrian, inviting, friendly experiences. So the comparison between 2016 and 2019, one thing is on the left. In 2016, you'll note that there was a tower that had been proposed, a 240-foot tower. Under the new plan, we are no longer proposing that tower. All of the residential development is going to be at mid-rise buildings. We've also proposed to increase the heights in the interior of the site to about 85 feet. That fits with the development across the street, both along Harney and Ingerson, because those height limits are 80 feet. So you have a nice framing set of buildings for that area that is now going to be complemented by some changes to the design pattern within this CP Center in 2019. The area in which we have increased some heights pertaining to the office development is all along Aurelius Walker, and it's the back side of Aurelius Walker that fronts up against the hillside. And I think in my next slide I'll show you that while we were designing these buildings, we were very conscious of the relationship between the built form and the natural landscape. And so it was important to ensure that as you're hiking to the top of the Bayview Hill, you can still look out over the buildings and enjoy the views. I've mentioned the change in the community facilities, 7.5%. Change from 2016 is from 35,000 to 23,000. And the locations. So we have identified blocks which will include the community facilities spaces. And as you can see, they're on almost every block along Ingerson and Harney. Certainly, they're along the base of the market rate blocks, and included on those is a specific site for the International African Marketplace. It's block 8A. You can see it there in your slide presentation. So what's this all going to take shape, and how are we going to experience it, and what's it going to look like? Let me show you a few slides that'll give you a sense of what we're wanting to achieve. This is a view into the project from Aurelius Walker Drive. And if you're looking down into the project, what you'll see is not only office buildings and some the market hall, but a large open space of 1 acre right in the center of the project. And we think that's really going to be great. And what's going to be so great about it is that, you know, we can have farmers markets, we can have festivals, we can have any kind of event right there in the center of a plaza where it can gather a lot of attention. Next slide, please. Here's a site from Ingerson Avenue and Montana Clark Drive. Now, what that is Montana Clark Drive, you may know, is the name of the street. It changes from Earl to Montana Clark Drive during the movement through CP Center. But while you're right there, that's a very important pedestrian entry. On your right, you see a potential food market hall. On the left, you see the hotel I've mentioned, and then some of the office and some of the plaza area out in the background. Please. And the Film Arts Center. This is certainly one of my favorite buildings, but what makes it so important is that I really believe every community needs some civic presence. You need a dramatic statement in that community that is what's going to provide an important iconic feature. It's something that everyone will recognize. It's something that we will all be proud of. And that civic gesture for this community, I think, is really important. Okay. Alice Griffith Neighborhood Plan. So this figure might be a little more helpful in depicting what I had discussed earlier. You can see in the purple, again, this is the move of the community facilities lot. If you see the circle around the block AG8, that is the location of the playground. That is what will remain under this new plan. We've also expanded the boundaries of CPO5 in order to capture some more development blocks, including this community lot in the first major phase. So the types of housing in the Alice Griffith neighborhood plan. So the stripes, those are indicating Alice Griffith blocks and some OCII blocks. The gray are market rate blocks, and of course the pink are workforce housing blocks. So transportation plan updates. Every time, of course, you update a program and the timing for implementing that program, it's also important that we update the transit operating plan to ensure that it comes online in a timely fashion, consistent with the development at that time. We have a small modification on one street that was made at the request of MTA in order to ensure a bus turning movement. We made some small refinements to the Harney Way in order to provide some access to state parks and to allow for a potential route into Executive Park if MTA should choose to do that in the future. And then the last thing we did is we added a new bus stop at the request of MTA at Aurelius Walker and Harney Way. Infrastructure plan updates pertain to sea level rise and a proposed utility easement and a potential recycled water connection with Hunters Point Shipyard. I think you all may recall that on Hunters Point Shipyard, we have proposed a water treatment plant that would take raw sewage and then turn that into water that could be used for irrigation purposes. So if we're able to do that, build that plant, we most certainly then will build a connection over the bridge to Candlestick Point so it too can take advantage of having a recycled water facility right in the middle of the project. And sea level, what that's all about is that new standards have arisen over the past few years. Since 2012, there have been some further research. And the National Research Council, they put out a new study, and it was adopted by most states along the California coast, including Washington and Oregon and California, and it's been adopted by San Francisco too, which really creates a higher standard for sea level rise. This is something that it's raising the grades 2 feet. Now, this is not going to affect us directly because we have already done that. So we're in anticipation of what is going to be needed to adequately address sea level rise. We are already meeting the standard as proposed now by the city of San Francisco and other locations along the California coast. Jobs. Under this plan, we have an equivalent number of jobs as under the prior plan. Those jobs may be a bit different. We retain the hotel jobs. We retain, of course, the operations associated with residential development jobs. We retain a certain amount of retail dining, entertainment, but those jobs are less, but the number of jobs associated with office is going to increase. Total number of construction days, almost 4,000. We have, as I had mentioned earlier, a good faith agreement that we anticipate is going to be included as a part of this agreement to be negotiated with OCII prior to the schematic design approval for the Candlestick Center. Okay. So vertical construction, I know most people are wanting to ask the question, so when are shucks? When are we going to see things rise out of the ground? We have some infrastructure in place, but that is on pause while we were revamping and seeking your approval for a new plan Once we secure your recommendation to the OCII Commission for approval, that'll set us on a path of getting construction, vertical construction, initiated in 2022. Right now, the game plan is we're going to get infrastructure in the ground next fall, 2020. That typically takes 2 years, so if you anticipate infrastructure construction 2020 to 2022, then we will be able to go vertical. So these are the steps of going vertical year by year. Okay. Community input. So as you know, we've been to joint PD&F and housing subcommittees. We've had a couple of community meetings, one at the Bayview Opera House and another at Bret Harte. We've gone to the Ellis Griffith Tenants Association and did a presentation to the full CAC Advisory Committee last March. We're here today. We're looking for your recommendation for approval, because with that recommendation and the next steps that follow, we are looking towards an approval hearing for this plan before the OCII Commission on October 15th. Following that approval, we will seek an approval by the Planning Commission for the design for development document updates. So with your recommendations, with approval by the OCII Commission in another week, we're really wanting to ensure that we build a neighborhood that is a complete neighborhood, that provides housing for every income, that provides jobs near housing and good transit and the parks and open space, an ability to shop and to eat out in your own neighborhood, and to ensure that you have a place for your child when you go to work. These are all the things that we're wanting to achieve as a part of this project. I am now ready for any questions you might have.
All right, committee, CAC members, do you have any questions? Ms. Smith, let's start with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if we could go back to the page where it shows the hotel, the office space, the job opportunities at Campbell Stick.
Sure, okay.
And what page is that, Ms. Smith?
It's no page number on there. It's this one here.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe go ahead.
What's the page
Yes,
next to
that's it.
Yeah.
What is it? It's in front of it or in
Yeah,
back?
There's
unfortunately.
no page number in front or in back.
Okay, so what does it say on the page, please?
I can't see it.
Job
I can't read it.
opportunities.
Oh, that jobs,
It would be page 37 if it had a number on it.
okay.
Starting from
Okay,
page
I have it
34.
now.
Teresa, thank you for your presentation, as well as, I apologize for coming in late, Ms. Walker. So on here, it says like the hotel, the office, the multiple family residential operation. When it say hotel, is that talking about how many rooms were proposed at first, 175, but now to be 200?
Oh, no, actually, those are numbers of jobs. So all that, I should have been clear. I should have been more clear in talking about this, because you're probably remembering 220 rooms for the hotel. The numbers on this page is a range of jobs that is associated with each type of land use. So at a hotel, we know that we have people, we have managers, we have sometimes people working in restaurants, we have people who are, you know, tending to and cleaning rooms, so there's a range of jobs there. And the number of those jobs, of course, is going to vary with the specific hotel. The office, that's really dependent on the tenant that we have, and you see a pretty big range there, but we want to be, you know, mindful of the fact that we do not have a tenant today, and so depending on who the tenant is, there may be more or less, well, we don't expect any less than 1875, but, you know, within that range, it could be any number of jobs. And then, of course, the retail, dining, entertainment jobs are there, 850 to 1,000. And there's always jobs associated with the community uses and maintenance in parks, those kinds of things.
Okay, so that's for the jobs.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We can go to someone else until I come back.
Okay, so, Pastor Bell, you had your hand up.
On the good faith effort,
Yes.
who is the good faith with?
Well,
Nebulous term.
yeah. Well, the good faith effort does require that you do outreach. So that's defined in our agreements under the small business enterprise agreements and such that we have. But that means that we actually outreach. So, for example, there's lists of small businesses at OCII. It's incumbent upon us, as well as OCII, to reach out to all of those small businesses and make it available to them. And notice that job opportunities are there, contracting opportunities are there. So it is incumbent upon us to use your typical good faith efforts in terms of reaching out, holding pre-bid conferences. Sometimes it's more helpful to have a large contract broken down into smaller ones so that those subs can be your small businesses.
And the water treatment facility, the recycled water,
Yes.
are you talking about putting another sewage treatment plant?
No, it's
That's what it sounds
well,
like
it
to
is.
me.
Sounds like that. And well, okay. So I don't. The intention is to create water, recycled water,
Okay, oh,
for non-potable use. But you're right. We're hooking up to a city sewer line and drawing from that, treating it, and then to standards necessary to enable us to use it for things like, well, washing a car or, irrigation, those kinds of things.
so a second sewage treatment plant then?
Well, shucks, I don't know that would be a good characterization of it
You
because,
can't characterize it no other way. You're shipping crap in, and you're cleaning it.
well,
Same,
okay.
Same that's going on here.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, you got me.
No, I'm not trying to get you.
No, I know that. I was trying to be more delicate in my
Right.
language, but
I think it's
yes,
because
we
you
are
guys already
treating
know that.
sewage. Oh, go for it.
Come on, go for it, yes.
I'm Shweta Subramanian with 5 Point. So just to clarify, this is, when you think about sewage, that's typically black water. And what we are doing is taking gray water. So it's taken from the sinks and, basically water that has been used once. And it's then cleaned of any sort of impurities and put back into systems where it doesn't get reused as potable water, which is drinking water, but water that's used for irrigation and other secondary uses.
So you're telling me there are no human feces in there?
That's right, that's called black water.
Okay, I just want to make sure we understand your terminologies.
All right, are there other questions? Thank you so much for your questions. Ms. Smith and Pastor Bell, I see you, Joyce. No, I won't forget you. Ms. Armstrong.
Culture Center was,
Market.
I was not clear where the African American Cultural Center was
it's on,
marked.
let us show you, let's point it out. It is,
It's there.
I think that one, yeah. So the print may be a little bit small on your slide, but it is directly across from the Wedge Plaza. It's block 8A, and it is a block that we discussed with Ms. Vincent. We talked to her about where she thought a good location would be. She liked the idea of being directly across from the park. That's what she got.
That's what you got, exactly. It's exactly what you got. All right,
I don't have a question.
you have okay, well, go ahead, Mrs. Gann.
Yes. I would like to thank you for your presentation. I enjoyed it. And I just look forward to this project going through. So you got my approval.
We do too. Thank you.
All right, are there any other comments from the CAC members? All right, so now I'm going to give those who are present an opportunity to ask questions. So we'll start with Commissioner Linda Richardson.
Good evening, CAC members. I'm Linda Fidike Richardson. I've been involved with land use decisions in San Francisco for the last 25 years or more. I want to bring to your attention that the Candlestick Point was under the Project Area Committee, under the old Development Agency, for 18 and a half years. Members of Bayview Hunters Point, youth, adult, put together the plan for Candlestick Point. We yielded to Lenore, now 5 Point. You can all sit here until everybody is gentrified from Bayview before you make decision. But there are some facts for people that are listening need to be cognizant of. There is no other project in the history of San Francisco. 5 Point Lenore has exceeded their obligations. You heard about 59 million community benefits. That's not even counting all the community development. That's not counting all the money they've given to our nonprofit. In terms of jobs, you don't need to listen to me. You need to ask CMD and all the city agencies that came out and says that this is the only project that we have. Now, let me also remind you, there are 17,000 plus units of housing in the pipeline. Guess who's going to build them all? 5 Point. You just saw, every day you pass to Bayview, you saw Mission Bay. Chase is running. You don't count how many people that look like you are going to be Mission Bay. Mayor Breed and Dr. Honeycutt and I were part of the signature to the first source hiring and housing. That really means that all this stuff, housing that are going to be built here, guess what? People in the Bayview Hunters Point now are going to have first preference. We have 5% population in San Francisco, 45% homeless. You have young people we are trying to stabilize. The dilemma is that we need to keep all this. Look at the job statistic. If you look at the Bayview Development Plan, that's the only developer that has ever recognized and adopted that land use plan is 5 Point. So let's go back. You have the films arts, you're gonna have childcare, you're gonna have senior center, you're gonna have below market rate. They're talking about 39%. Everywhere in the city, 10, 15. Even on Innes Avenue, there is nothing there for the BMR. And I can go on and on. You're gonna have educational center. So what are we talking about here? Why all you are here? There are people in the Bayview that worked for 18 and a half years to put this plan. Unfortunately, most of them are gone now. Ms. Doris Vincent was the only one here. Dr. Honeycutt was the dean. She made available this space. So the time is of the essence. While we are here, okay, they're building hotel on the Embarcadero. They're building in Mission Bay. I know a lot of people here are not going to be able to attend that, but the housing is what we need, and you need to be cognizant of the time and space, but you also need to get the record straight. Again, at the end of the day, this is the only project that we have hope. They've already proven themselves. They have exceeded in jobs and businesses. Lastly, a lot of the Bayview businesses that have benefited from the Hunters Point development are out of work now, waiting on you to act so that they can take advantage of the businesses that are here. So I'm in support of this. This is compatible. There is a lot at stake here. We need to get this thing going and going fast. And thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the, all right, Randy Saragucci?
Good evening, CAC members. My name is Randy Saragucci. I'm the executive director of Urban Ed Academy. We're a nonprofit based here in Bayview Hunters Point, now based hyper-locally at Malcolm X Academy up on the hill, where we just started there last year as the Beacon Community School Operator, which means we are a community hub, creating a partnership platform for the school. It was an expansion by the city, DCYF, to expand to double the number of sites, and we were lucky enough to catch one in Bayview here. I wanted to just share our experience as a community benefits recipient, somebody in the education space, but also somebody that was willing to be innovative and look to take a risk and try to get some intersectional work done, because that's what our families need, and we tried to make a call for that, even as a smaller organization. And we are very blessed and privileged to have had the opportunity to have some resources and support come our way so that we can do what I'm about to tell you. So there are two different sets of highlights I want to give you. One at Malcolm X Academy as a school, and then two for us as an organization, Urban Ed Academy, with a new initiative we have called Man the Bay. So Malcolm X is up on the hill. It has been a traditionally under-resourced school, to say the least. It's had declining enrollment for decades, and in our first year there as an organization, we've been able to increase the enrollment by 30%, which brings more additional average daily attendance dollars to the school. We actually just had a conversation with Superintendent Vincent Matthews there today. He was really happy to see what we were doing, that we were a flexible, nimble organization that can be there and be supportive of those families because of the growth that's coming to the neighborhood. The school is fighting to make sure that any of those projected thousands of families coming back have a home at Malcolm X, and we'll be there at least for the next four years of our contract. That was probably the biggest win. The school has also had gains given our strategy. We are primarily an employer of African American educational leaders, and this Man the Bay project is our shot at bringing more African American men into schools in this city, which is hard enough to bring educators in, let alone black men. But our proposal and our hypothesis is that if we can get them housed and we can get them here in the neighborhood, we actually stand a chance of them staying in the neighborhood and staying at these schools with these kids, because the statistics show that even if you can't get a magic wand of results, if you can get one black man in front of one black boy before 6th grade, he basically is going to college and is not dropping out. There's no silver bullet to this thing, but an easy decision of a hire, we're trying to make easier for the schools by actually having brothers live here, and this project was really made possible by the support that we got. So far, we have 5 partnerships with 5 HBCUs across the country. We brought in 8 young men into the neighborhood, and we've activated 4 housing sites, 3 in San Francisco and 1 in West Oakland. I'm not allowed to say this like that, but I'm going to be very, 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 very focused on making sure that African American men are first in line for those resources. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without this. I can give you probably some other stats, but I would love to talk to you all offline about some of that stuff. The expansion of what we've done, the depth of what we've been able to do really has come hand in hand with a project like this. We are excited about seeing what other groups can get from that, not necessarily just ourselves. We really feel like this is going to be a boom for the neighborhood moving forward. And while we're not going to be able to see the gains with our babies because they're still in elementary school, I hope I'm around and alive to see them go to college and go far. But I can tell you that the seeds are being planted right now, and that we're really proud to be a partner in the work. In addition to moving the new professionals here, we're helping stabilize homeowners here as well. So I can give you this is really a strategy we've worked out with other city agencies, the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development in particular, OEWD, DPW, DCYF, which is around this neighborhood stabilization of making sure that African American families, specifically those that have been multi-generational here, don't lose their $1 million asset because of fill in the blank. So if we're able to help be a connector between them and public resources that want to find them in order for them to stabilize their asset and then use it as a platform for partnership with these young men moving into the neighborhood, I think we really stand a chance. So we're at 8, we're in our 2nd cohort, and we're not going to stop till we bring 100 into the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, we have a couple of other people who would like to present, I believe. Mr. Al Williams.
Good evening. I'm Al Williams, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to start off by thanking you for this opportunity to be here and appreciate the excellent presentation that was made. Just sat there. I wasn't intending to speak this evening. Hadn't really planned to be here, but as the presentation was going on, I was reminded that Scott Mattis and I go back to the days of I think we were part of the original Citizens Advisory Committee on the Shipyard, appointed by Mayor Agnos at the time. So it's with some great sense of relief that seeing all the activity that's coming forward finally being realized in a very full sense. So I just wanted to say mention a couple of things. One, again, express appreciation for the work that the committee has done in looking out for the interest of the community, express appreciation for the work that Lennar/Five Point has done in being responsive, in particular to the work of LaShawn Walker, who has been the person out in front on a lot of this, making sure that even while things seem to be dragging along and in the trenches, that the work of benefit to the community and interaction with the community has been consistent and going on over time. Amongst other things, I'm president of the Bayview Merchants Association. So from that perspective, we're really excited to see this project continue to move forward and hope the committee will take an affirmative action this evening to move the process forward. And we look forward from the merchant standpoint of continuing to work with 5 Point to make sure that local businesses that exist participate in the project and that people in the community evolve into opportunities to take advantage as it moves forward. There's a pretty nice timeline in terms of when this thing is going to really come to fruition, which means there's a real opportunity to identify people with interest and aptitude and skills that can evolve to take advantage of opportunities when they materialize. We can't wait until the opportunity is there to get ready. Now's the time to continue that preparation, and Bayview Merchants and other organizations in the community are working on that end of it to make sure that people in the community are ready to take advantage of it. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Carolyn Scott from OCII.
Thank you, Dr. Honeycutt, Madam Chair, and the CAC committee. I'm pleased to be here and on this side of the table and room and missing you all, but I approve and am so excited about the project moving forward in hopes that it will. I feel that we're so blessed to have an organization like 5 Point that cares enough to pour not just into help with construction, but the building of homes, jobs, the provision of those, as well as trying to make sure that what was approved in 2018 goes forward and is implemented. I'm hoping that goes forward. I've been down to Salesforce. I've been down to Trans Bay. I've been down to Mission Bay, and I'm seeing they're advancing. They're done with a lot of their building. And here we are still.
Thank you.
Sitting here waiting, and there are many things they still want, but they're pushing forward. And I'm hoping we don't miss out and end up saying they didn't want us anyway. And I cannot say enough about what Mr. Williams just said, LaShawn. When I go to meetings and go to events, she's representing us, and she's there. And not only LaShawn, but I'm thankful for those that do the presentations. Therese, they're caring enough. And we're not perfect, but we're moving toward that perfection and excellence. So I hope we don't hold up until we're outside of the whole big picture. We're doing great, we're doing good, but there is so much that's been presented to us. And it's in a way that we can advance and live and be a part of a 21st century. So I do hope that we make this approval and move forward with it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. All right, please.
Share some information. My name is Elizabeth Williams.
Would you speak into the microphone so we can hear you?
So my name is Elizabeth Williams. I lived in Alice Griffith for 30 years. I've been away for a while. But I have some family that's still in Alice Griffith who was talking to me about, and I know this, you guys probably, you can give the information, pass the information, or even support the topic of what I'm going to speak about, which is about the water. What I hear is that the water in the buildings over there is so messed up that someone had put the water in ice cube things to freeze them, and the ice cubes were brown. So the water is so bad there that I think somebody needs to take a stand and do something, check into it, because that's bad living condition. It's just insanitary, and I felt like I was obligated to share that information because some changes need to be made there in that respect. So I'm just
thank you for
make
that.
sure I share that in hopes that somebody would follow up and follow through, and I'll see you guys again. Thank you all for everything.
Thank you. AG Water. Okay. All right, and I believe there's one other lady who would like to speak. Please.
Excuse me. My name is Jeanette Sullivan, and I have about 3 questions that I want to ask. First of all, how will all of this affect the Candlestick Park?
How will what affect?
Well,
the
all of the
Candlestick Park?
buildings that are going around, will it affect the park in any way?
Okay, just a second. Why don't you say all of your questions and then we'll get answers. for
Okay,
you.
and the other one is, why is there a hotel needed to be built there?
Okay.
And the other thing is, I'm not familiar with what is workforce housing.
Okay. So let's get some answers for you on that. Please, Therese, Reese, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Sure. So we start at the beginning here. Yeah, you want to make sure that the park is protected, and you're probably talking about the Candlestick Point State Recreation Area. You know, part of our agreement with the state parks is that we provide them with $50 million to improve the park. So not only are we not wanting to intrude upon the parks, we're wanting to improve them. So with those monies, hopefully we'll be able to see even a better park with a range of activities that you all can enjoy. With parking. Yes. Yes. Yes, I've seen their plans, and they have parking in them. Yes, absolutely, they do. Okay, and so you asked a second question about the hotel. The hotel, by the way, has been a part of the projects from the inception, and I think since back in 2010, we had a hotel as a part of the project, and we continued to do so. It's a really nice complement to some of the other users. So, for example, if you are a business person and you have colleagues flying into town, having a hotel right next to your office building is optimal. It really is great. And so for those kinds of reasons, it's nice to include a hotel as part of the overall mix of entertainment, retail, shopping, dining, office, all of it. It's just one element of a complement of uses that make this project succeed. The workforce housing, okay, so what is it? So workforce housing is dedicated to those who have an area median income that's runs somewhere between 140, 160%. So what that means is that housing is available to people like your firefighters or your policemen or your teachers or your nurses, people who may not make quite enough money to afford market rate housing unit, but they're priced out. They make too much money to be in the lower affordable categories. But they're the working people who need to live in this community. Well, when you say preferential treatment to a certain group, it is the affordable housing program has been designed to touch families at every income level. So you've heard earlier us talk about those homes that are at the 60% and below. Then we also have homes that are 80 to 120%. We have homes that are 140 to 160%. So the idea is for us to provide a wide range of housing.
You'll have to get to the microphone, please.
Sorry. I understand that part, but what I'm saying is if you're talking about the firefighters and the teachers and the whoever else professionals that jobs are in the city and that they want to be in the city, you're giving them preference over the medical assistants at hospitals, a group like that?
It really is not a job category per se, but an income category. So whether or not it's medical assistants or others, or someone who might do mechanic work. I mean, it depends on income, not on the job description.
All right. Are there any other people in the part of our public who would like to ask any questions? Well, then I'll return to the CAC members, whom I thought had finished asking their questions. I'll turn right back to, wait a minute, I haven't acknowledged you yet. Don't jump the gun.
All right, madam.
Ms. Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
Please ask your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I just want to make a statement that at the end of the day, you know, I ask that we go ahead and move forward with this, with an exception. So asking for more housing be put online so that those of us who moved out of San Francisco and want to come back can, and for those of us who live here, so it could be affordable for us. Because in San Francisco, low income is what, 126,000 or less? I don't know nobody in my community that's making that. It just seems like it's making it convenient for them. So I'm, you know, at the end of the day, I'm asking for that so that in the future, my children, my grandchildren, I don't have any now, but when they come, my great-grandchildren could also have an opportunity for home ownership. And this is something where it could start at today. This is how I came, my ancestors came here from Louisiana because of the opportunity of working at the shipyard, then becoming entrepreneurs, as well as becoming homeowners. So I'm just asking for the same thing. And it would be less of me not to ask and request this for my community, for my people, to be able to have the opportunity to come back to San Francisco. Why can't we stay here? Why is our percentage so low? Why do we have to move out to buy a home? We should still have the same standards as anybody else. And that's all I'm saying. And let's move forward. Because at the end of the day, you look at all these other places and you look at the numbers of us, we are not there. And those of us who are there, we're only there temporarily until they move us back to our locations where we have to go back to.
I really appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Dedria, because, you know, I would not be in my house if that house had not been purchased by my folks. And it took every dollar they had to try to get into it. In 1974, they purchased the house at $40,000. But if I ever sold that house, I'd never get back to San Francisco because I cannot afford to pay $3,200 for a two-bedroom apartment. I understand that there are folks who are now priced out. I understand if you didn't get in early and retain and hold and scratch to keep it, your house, you would probably not be there. Okay, at the same time, this project offers an opportunity to have affordable housing and jobs for people in the community. okay, and in the city and county of San Francisco. They have already shown, from my perspective, 5 Point has already shown their commitment to this community because of the community benefits, and you know what those community benefits are and how they have benefited, truly benefited the community, how they have made a difference in the lives of people who live here. And I know you're not. So we recognize what you're talking about. We're all dismayed at the fact that this housing generally is very difficult for people who are in the lower AMI areas. That's why this project is good, because it's 60% and lower, okay? So that means that those folks who are in those lower categories are also going to have housing availability. But if we fool around tonight and nickel and dime this proposal, if we do not approve it, then nothing will move forward. Okay, let's get real about this. Okay?
We support it.
And let's move forward. And so I appreciate what you're saying. I appreciate what you're saying, particularly as an African American woman who has watched her folks, who has watched her folks work very hard to maintain. Okay, I get it, but we need to move this forward. And I'm just going to come on off and tell you that, based on what I have seen in these documents, based on the 4 meetings that I've attended that you've all been invited to, by the way, where they've been very explicit in what they were going to do. I think it's time to move forward. Now, are there any more questions from the CAC members?
Yes.
Okay, Pastor Bell.
All right. First of all, I don't know why everybody's so hot on BMRs. We don't qualify. We had a brother up here in phase 1.
I didn't hear what you're saying. I'm sorry. Would you say it again?
I don't know why we're so hot on below market rate units, because we ain't gonna get any. We ought to be talking about low income units. That's where our people are gonna come in. Low income. That's what we ought to be talking about. And for that reason, I'm upset at the Mayor's Office of Housing, because they're not at the table advocating for a more low-income housing. My question never was answered about what's going to happen with those Alice Griffin units that are still there, that have been turned over to 5 Point.
Sorry, that was I neglected to answer that question. So the units that are there currently, or the old units, so to speak, those are undergoing abatement and will be undergoing demolition. So they will all come down. And then they will get returned once we complete the infrastructure back to the Housing Authority and OCII and et cetera.
So you mean you're going to do all that demolition?
Yes, sir.
And the infrastructure, and then turn it back over to the city, because Housing Authority ain't into housing no more?
Well, okay. Right. No. Our obligation is to return to the Housing Authority the lots that they have that belong to them currently. It's our obligation to have those returned to them once all the demolition takes place.
So Lennar doesn't, or 5 Point,
Won't buy it.
Don't own those lots after you demolish it?
Well, the land is in our care right now for the purpose of abating and demolishing. But once the abatement and demolition is finished, and once infrastructure commences and is ready then for home building, then that property can go back to whether it's OCII or the San Francisco Housing Authority or whatever use,
so
or community.
Okay.
Some of those lots are market rate lots. You may have seen in the picture.
Right.
Some of them are market rate. Some of them are workforce. Some of them are at the very lowest of income. So it's a range of housing type, and that's purposeful. I mean, it's purposeful simply because we truly believe to make this community successful is that we need to provide housing for everyone. We can't have a, kind of a segregated community where there's only one type of housing. What we want is an integrated, mixed-use community that everyone can benefit from.
Teresa, who
Yes,
owns
sir.
the land?
She
just told us.
today? We effected a transfer agreement with OCII, hold on a second, with OCII and the Housing Authority. It was in their interest that we take ownership because of the liability concerns and the work that needed to get done. So we are taking responsibility for the abatement and the demolition, and once that's completed, those blocks go back to where they belong. Well, it depends on which block. So we can flip back. So the Housing Authority has another.
It's still here.
Yes.
It's just under a transition, that's all.
Yeah.
Well, that's the answer right there.
Okay, I'm not through yet.
Okay.
It looks like the same people, they keep saying they can't answer about,
Well, why don't you just ask your question? I mean, they're here, they're ready.
the same people are running 5 Points, we're running Lennar.
Well, it's
Yeah,
actually.
who was that said no? Kofi Barnum is the president of 5 Point. He runs
Yes,
the show.
yes.
He ran Lennar.
Well, he was the president of Lennar here in San
Okay.
Francisco. Absolutely.
Right. So now, my only point is that
Yeah.
something is going. I mean, I've been around business, I've been around contractors for years. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. We can't get an answer on lawsuits. We can't get, well, flat out said that you're not going to.
No, sir, we cannot. We are separate corporations.
Yeah, I know.
Separate corporations now. We cannot speak for Lennar, but you can certainly ask them your question.
No, I understand LLCs.
Sure.
Okay? I know that the purpose of an LLC is to limit your liability, period. If all of these lawsuits go through, or if they tie the project up for the next 10 years.
Excuse me, I hate to
We
cut
might
off
be
this.
digressing just a moment.
Yeah, I'm going to have to cut off this part, because what we're supposed to be doing is dealing with a recommendation on this project. I've been asked, Sergio Gomez has asked us to kind of move forward. I hope you've asked all the questions that you needed to ask.
Because you keep cutting me off.
Well, you need to ask the questions and get through, because we can't be here
just
until
cut
10
me
o'clock
off.
trying as you ask all of these questions.
You just cut me off.
I'm just trying to tell you, we need to move
Okay,
forward.
I'm not for it.
Okay.
You can move forward.
Then
I'll
that's,
be at the
but you made
OCII.
your position already, Pastor Bell.
I'll be heard at the board.
Okay,
Through.
you made your position well known.
Through.
You don't want to ask any more questions now.
I'm
I'm giving
through.
you another chance to ask these questions.
I'm through. Period.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward.
I need a motion on this particular action item, which is to, it needs to be rephrased in a different way. Would you like to rephrase it, Ms. Smith? You say this is an action item to approve the plans, and then you can read it right from the document or paraphrase it.
But
Okay, that's okay.
yeah, because I want some changes to be made that has been requested.
And changes in your motion that you're making, or?
In the plans that we are moving forward with. What's your,
Okay, okay, so you didn't really make a motion, is the other word. Dedrick, did you make a motion?
I did.
Okay, so what is the motion? Let me just hear this.
So I make a motion that we go ahead and move forward with the plans, recommendation for item D with.
Not D, we're not on D.
What do you mean D?
With item 4A with changes that was requested.
What changes that were requested? I don't understand what you're talking about.
So I had asked for more housing.
Okay, wait a minute. Let's take a second on that motion that you just did. Is there a second on that? Okay, there's no second. Okay, do you want to refrain, or may I go to another person?
You can go to another person.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mrs. Armstrong.
I want to move for recommendation that item 4A be recommended for approval. That's my motion.
All right, and is there a second?
A second.
Yes, there is a second. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Thank you. The measure passes, and this has been taken care of. Thank you very much. It's going to take a while for them to even discuss it. Will that allow you to get... All right, our next item on the agenda, the Port of San Francisco Resilience Project presentation, that will we will not hear that one tonight. Thank you, Ms. Lowe, for allowing us to schedule that for the November meeting. Thank you, though, for being here. Okay, so we'll move on to the last item in terms of presentations, which is the entertainment license for Shipyard Trust for the Arts, STAR, as it aims to be in compliance with the city requirements. Barbara Okel, thank you for being here.
Thank you very, very much, Mrs. Honeycutt, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. I'm speaking to you. My name is Barbara Okel. I'm the president of Shipyard Trust for the Arts, a nonprofit organization out at the shipyard that works to advocate for the continued existence of affordable artist spaces at the shipyard. There's about 300 artists out there, and the artists are asking for your help to be able to organize.
Lateness that she would be glad to come back. I'm sorry,
Oh,
Barbara.
yes.
Back in November. All right, so excuse me if we can get past the tracking and everything.
Is it mine?
May I continue?
All right, please, Barbara.
Okay, so great. As
Sorry.
I said, there's about 300 artists out there, and our organization, which is an all-volunteer organization, would like to put on more events at the shipyard, such as the open studios. We want to enhance the existing open studios event, which I'm sure you're all familiar with having some additional entertainment in the form of like a beer and wine garden, music, food from local Bayview vendors, so that people can enjoy those amenities as well. Because we're competing with other events in the city that have all that as a given. And we have been suffering from low attendance numbers at Open Studios events for the last couple of years. Now, we think that maybe in part due to the fact that there's a construction site right in front of our building, and visitors find it very kind of unpleasant to walk through there. And so we're doing what we can to mitigate those circumstances. And so this year we are actually closing Coleman Street right by the storehouse, and we're putting in like a beer and wine garden right there. We're working together with the storehouse, and we're bringing in a couple of other vendors, and having this sort of entertainment area where people can take a break from looking at art, because otherwise if they get hungry they have to leave the shipyard, and generally they don't come back. Now the shipyard artists are becoming more active as they realize they can't just sit there and wait for customers to come anymore, because it's not an automatic thing anymore, and they want to do more events, more than 2 Open Studios events a year, and one holiday event which is also planned already. They want to do a few more things. And now there's no plan, at least not in the foreseeable future, for like very large scale events of any kind. It's about attracting customers to the artists, and whatever can be done to attract people to come out there and make the shipyard seem like a more normal place to visit than it has been in the past. And certainly, with all the negative publicity that's been going on, people are reluctant to come out there, and we need to create something to attract people to come. We also want to make the Shipyard Studios more known to the local Bayview community, because when there is turnover, we are heavily advocating for having community artists have preference over other artists that may be on the waiting list to get studio space there. We just recently got Malik Sonefru, a studio there, who lives in Richmond, but he's the quintessential Bayview artist. He mentioned to me, I'd like to come back and have a studio at the Shipyard, so he'll be exhibiting at Open Studios in his own studio, and he will have the option to remain in that studio. So anyway, because the city requires a lot of licenses for everything we do, the health department, the alcohol license department, and the entertainment commission, the fire department. So anytime we have an event, we have to do all this legwork and deal with all the agencies to get the proper permits. We don't want to do things, under the table or, whatever. We like to do things properly and safely. And so it costs us so much work and so much money to get these licenses for all the events. And if we're starting to do more, it's really becoming untenable. So as a start, we are talking to the Entertainment Commission about a license. They have already spoken to OCII, and OCII has no objection to us getting such a license. We're talking about a limited entertainment license, which technically would give us the right to have entertainment from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day of the year. We have no such plans to do that. We're not a place of entertainment, so to speak, but it would allow us to create more activations for the artists as well as the residents out there at the Shipyard, as well as attracting the surrounding community for things that they may be interested in, so that they develop more awareness about the opportunities for artists and for potential home ownership out in the Shipyard over the next few years before those opportunities are all snatched up by other people. So we are asking for your support with the Entertainment Commission to grant us such a license. And it would be extremely awesome if there could be a letter of support from this body of authority.
Okay, so was this intended to be an action item, Barbara? Did you want us, to write a letter to support?
I would like you to write a letter, yes.
Okay, I'll have to take it up with our office manager as to whether we can write that letter without an official action item.
Okay.
But we'll, I hope this is all right on behalf of the rest of you who are here. Oh, Sergio, you have a question for her.
Yeah, what kind of entertainment are you trying to do over there? What kind of entertainment? What kind of event?
What kind of events?
Events you want to put
Well,
up?
it's just basically what I was talking about, just having, we're having local bands play, we have local vendors come in and sell food, and so that's the extent of the events we've had. But we've been thinking about some other events, I do a lot of street events for the Bayview Opera House. There's something a little bit more. Maybe we'll have a Halloween event one year. We'll invite the kids out. Great haunted house potential.
Do you have a location for this event? Do you have a location? A location where you want to...
Well, we basically...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we're looking at... basically, locations could be anywhere where the artist buildings are currently located.
Yeah.
Either the big one, 101, or in Parcel B. Those artists are also, they're even more cut off from everything. They would like to have some activity, have some music played, have the kids from Markham X School, where we do, provide some after-school activities, have them come out and visit.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah, just, very community-oriented. We want to make a stronger connection with the Bayview community so that it's not this, Shipyard artists and Shipyard residents completely cut off from the rest of Bayview.
Are there any other CAC member questions for Barbara? Okay, Barbara.
Yeah, for it.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah. So let's work out the particulars.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for making this presentation tonight.
Thank you for listening.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Madison.
May I know we can't take action on this, but I'm wondering if it turns out after consulting with our powers that be that it would be okay to write a letter of support without going through the whole, another 6 weeks or 2 months of this.
Right.
We just asked the could I ask for the sense of the committee to support, would the committee generally support this notion so that?
Sure,
if
we can do
someone-
that.
Go ahead and write the letter.
Yeah, right.
Be able to do that?
Right, okay, so let's do by a show of, let's do a show of hands. How many people are in support of this? Okay, so that's all of us who are
It's
here.
unanimous.
Yes, that's good. Okay, so thank you for
Scott.
making that suggestion, Mr. Madison, so we don't have to delay it. You know, we can support the letter.
And then
And then
Richard would
Barbara,
love
if
to
you
do-
would work with our staff in
I will do that.
crafting the letter.
Yes.
Okay?
Great.
Oh,
Yes,
Mrs. Walker, Ms. Walker? Okay, please. Barbara, she has a question for you.
Good evening. I have a question about the permit. So, is there only one type of permit? So when you say the permit would give you the ability to have events every day, again, from 10 to 10, or what did you, I don't want to misspeak. Did you say 10 to 10? Okay. So the permit would give you permission to have events with a certain level of noise, right? Every day from 10 to 10. Is there only one type of permit, or is there a permit that would allow it 3 days a week? I mean, is it all or nothing? I just don't know how they work.
There's two types of permits that the Entertainment Commission issues, as far as I know, and one is like from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m., and then there's the one from 10 to 10, which is what we're applying for.
Madam Chair?
And,
You
you
don't
know,
want to party till 2 o'clock in the morning, Barbara?
So the variation between the two permits is only hours, not days of week.
Not the artist I once knew.
Yeah.
Okay, is that?
say about that, like, if, you know, there's always, the Entertainment Commission always works with resident complaints. So like, if we was to start having loud events every day and the residents would go, no, we don't want this, they can come in front of the Entertainment Commission or register complaints, and then the Entertainment Commission would come back and go like, no, you can't do all that. You need to be, you know, considerate of the residents.
One more question.
Sergio.
Are you planning to,
Gomez.
are you applying to ABC for a beer and wine license too?
Well, I don't think I mean, at this point, we're not in a position to get a beer and wine license for the whole year. It's very complex to get that.
No, I have
But
something,
I'm going to like, try to get all licenses one by one, you know, into place.
So Barbara, again, the entertainment license would enable you to do what? STARS to do what?
To provide entertainment anywhere around the artist buildings from 10 to 10 every day.
Okay.
I mean, that's the type of license it is.
Okay. Yeah, because I hear you saying about other licenses, so, and
I
you
mean,
want to get
there's
them one by
there's a
one.
health department license, but you got to have a licensed kitchen. There's an alcohol license, which is very complicated to get.
Right.
And then there's an assembly license from the fire department, which at the moment is not possible to get because of the non-compliance of some of the buildings.
Got it. Thank you. Mr. Madison.
Thank you, Dr. Honeycutt. Ms. Ockel, if I know just kind of recapitulating here, but if I understood you correctly, if Shipyard Trust of the Arts is able to get this entertainment license, it will reduce or eliminate the requirement for each individual event to get this permit, this permit, this permit for this event, this permit, this permit, this permit for the next event. It's like an umbrella sort of blanket permit to do these sort of events?
Unfortunately not. The entertainment permit would only eliminate the need to get an entertainment license. So we still have to get other licenses.
But just once, rather than for every...
With the entertainment license, it would be annually renewed. You know, we pay a certain fee per year, but if we were selling food to the public, we still have to get a health department license. Yeah.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you so much for that information, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, folks. So we have public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anyone who, hearing that, this meeting is adjourned as of 5 minutes after 8. Thank you very much.
89.5 KPOO San Francisco, and there you have it, gavel to gavel. Once again, the Mayor's Hunters Point Shipyard Citizens Advisory Committee meeting here in the Southeast Community College venue at 1800 Oakdale, and we're here every month, generally the second Monday of the month, but in October, as you know, Indigenous Peoples Day is the second Monday of the month, and so there will be no meeting, and therefore they moved the meeting up a week early this month, and we'll see you again next month, second Monday of the month in November. And we encourage you to get involved, stay involved. You can get more information from the HPSCAC.net, and that's the Hunters Point Shipyard CAC.net for more information. And you can always follow us here at KPOO for more information. This is being streamed also on YouTube via the Bayview Report, so you can always find it there as well. And always a good reference is KPOO Radio, as we've been bringing you these broadcasts for more than 20 years now. So that's going to do it for us. Let me see, did I have any other announcements I wanted to make? Let's see. Bay Day is coming up. Indian Basin kayak boat rides, Saturday, October 12th, 11 to 2. That's at the Indian Basin Shoreline Park. And where can you go for more information? Yes, indeed. Yeah, P.O. Box, no, that's not it. More information, indianbasin.org. Again, for more information, indiabasin.org. And that's going to about do it for us here at the Southeast Community College. For KPOO Radio, I'm the LBD. The Love Back Doctor, serving you a good old dose of that medicine every Wednesday, 11 p.m. till 2 a.m., that is. And always tune in to KPOO. And you know, we're in the midst of our fall fundraiser, and you can make your tax-deductible donation to this radio station, KPOO. We are truly the people's radio station, and been so ever since we've been in existence. KPOO, the PO radio. We so PO, we can't afford the R. So you can help us by making a tax-deductible donation. We might can get that R one day. But at any rate, make a donation, tax-deductible. Tell Uncle Sam you gave us the money you owed them. Anyway, we're going to send it back to the station. This is KPOO San Francisco.